Professor Schroeder received the Trotter Prize from the College of Science at Texas A&M University in 2012. He is the author of Genesis and the Big Bang, published in 1980. The Science of God, the Convergence of Science and Biblical Wisdom in 1997. The Hidden Face of God, Science Reveals the Ultimate Truth in 2002. God According to God, a physicist proves we've been wrong about God all along in 2009. Currently, Professor Schroeder is a lecturer at Yeshivat Esha Torah's Discovery Seminar, Essentials and Fellowships Program, and the Executive Learning Program at the Yeshiva. Now I give you Professor Schroeder. Jerry, you ready? Okay, come on, I'm ready. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And after the talk, Professor Schroeder will take questions and comments.
Yeah. Unless there are questions that are burning in your soul, so then ask them during the talk. Unless that's forbidden. Is that forbidden?
Well, it would be better while we're recording the lecture if people hold their questions and comments until it's finished. There'll be plenty of time for
So the session this evening has to do with trying to determine whether or not there are data or evidence for a creator of the universe, right? The truth is, I don't remember what the verb looked like. What is that? I think, is that correct? I'm not sure. In any event, what are the data? There is at the moment a YouTube, I don't know if I already just mentioned it now, Proof of God in 5 minutes. Is that according? Okay. There's a YouTube out called Proof of God in 5 minutes. It's me talking with very, very good graphics put on it. It has 2,100,000 views. That's almost unheard of for lectures. You can get it for a movie, but for lectures, you never get numbers like that. So as Much said, maybe people are actually interested in this kind of stuff. It's interesting that if you look at the distribution of the people that have watched it, about 600,000 are from the Jewish side, and about 1,500,000 are from the Christian side. But there's a lot more Christians than there are Jews, so maybe that makes sense. What's interesting is also about that is when you look it up, so you get there's about 20 listings, because many people have taken over to the sites also. But there's another one that comes up, Proof of God in 5 minutes debunked. And that's very encouraging, because if it's just Norishkeit, if it's just foolishness, it don't bother to debunk it. It obviously bothers them, because you get that many people saying, then good grief, it sounds like maybe there is a God. But the argument, why we talk about tonight having Proof of God in 2 steps. The first step, which is in this, what is on the web at the moment, is a demonstration from the science point of view that there are data that indicate a creator in the world. The second stage is what are the data that might imply this creator is interested in the universe it created. So the first stage of this is found on the NASA site, National Air and Space Authority. If you go to the NASA site and you download or type in at the site WMAP, or if you go to Google Images and just type in WMAP, WMAP are the initials for a satellite that mapped the history of the universe. We got 2 people the Nobel Prize, and it produced this amazing diagram. This piece of paper is about 5 years old. You can go and get it hasn't changed 1 word since then, and it is essentially the history of the universe from the creation of the universe to you sitting here today. I don't know if you can get it, or can you get it close up on this, or just so they can be shown there from the beginning. Anyone that's watching can just go to the web and type in NASA and then WMAP and search around, and you get this. So what does this tell us? For those that can see, this diagram is the creation and then the expansion of the universe. The fact that there's an oval over here is to demonstrate or to indicate that the universe expands in all directions. Obviously on a flat piece of paper you can't show that. So this is the timeline. Each vertical line is another billion years, and it takes about 14 lines to get from the creation to get to us here, out here. We're on this line right here. And the specs are galaxies forming, etc. What's interesting is the beginning. And I would say that this is the most significant statement that science has ever made relative to the metaphysical being active in the physical. I'm not convinced that those that put it up on the web realize this, but they did. And the interest in this is not just people that I don't know about, but about 2 years and 2 months ago at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C., I gave one of the keynote talks on exactly this diagram. And they have these big, because there's 3,000 people present, there are these big TV things all over the place. And I kept asking them to put this up on, don't show my face, show the diagram. But what we see here, it is so exciting that the bells are ringing. It's really amazing. Thank you. It's really, it's extraordinary. It shows you that there's someone that wants to hear about the talk. Why don't you turn it off? They want to hear the talk. Yeah. Okay, I don't blame you shutting it off. Anyway, so what do we see here? This is the part that's so phenomenal. It shows a creation of the universe from absolute nothing. The black here is not empty space. Empty space is something. It's space that's empty. That's inside here. This is nothing. Nothing doesn't fit in the human brain. There are only certain things that fit in the human brain, that they're all made out of time, space, and matter. We all think in a box. Smart people, dumb people, in-between people, great theologians and great whatever they are, scientists, whatever, all think in the same box. No one has a thought out that is not constructive of aspects of time and space and matter. No one. So when I say this is nothing, the black around here, we can say the word, but we have no idea what it means. But it's not empty space. Empty space isn't here, because empty space is empty. In any event, so we have here on this side of the diagram a statement of the creation of the universe. And even if you can't see from the distance the words, you can tell it's more than 3 letters, like G-O-D. It's quantum fluctuations. In other words, an aspect of the laws of nature. Now, Ed Tryon in 1973 published exactly this in the journal Nature, which is one of the 2 leading peer-reviewed science journals. It's the journal Nature is published in the UK, and the other one at the top of the mountain is called Science, is published in the States. Peer review means, for the ones who may not know what peer review is, you send it, I write an article, I feel really good about it from an experiment, I send it to the journal, they take off my name, and they send it to my peers. And the peers tell me yes or no. If it's no good, they're right, but I never know to whom it's sent. It's double blind. And they'll never know who wrote the paper. Eventually it gets published, they'll know, because my name will be on it if it gets published, if they say yes to it. In any event, Tryon published in the journal Nature that a combination of quantum physics and the laws of relativity can produce the universe from absolute nothing. The false argument from lack of understanding of science that the very creation of the universe proves there's a God can only be said from a person that doesn't know science, or at least quantum physics. Because quantum physics allows yesh ma'ayin, provided something from nothing, provided you got the laws of nature. Now that becomes a little dicey. So this diagram is telling me that the laws of nature predate the universe. I mean, if the laws of nature create the universe from absolute nothing, as the concentrated knowledge of the scientific community said, this diagram is the concentrated understanding of the scientific community of how you got up to here, which is where we are. That's us on this part of the diagram. So the scientific community tells me that the laws of nature predate the universe. That means they predate our concept of time. Our concept of time begins with the creation of the universe. So there may be other aspects of time called higgledy or moggledy or zuggledy, meaningless sounds that would be time in a different dimension. But we can't think of that dimension because we're stuck in the box right here. So the laws of nature, I discovered from the scientific community, predate the universe because that's how it was created. And the laws of nature are therefore outside of time, as we understand time. Now, the laws of nature aren't physical. They're forces that act on the physical, like, gravity. It's a force. So it's not physical. It's a force. We don't see it manifested as a particle. We see it manifested as a force. So we have a series of forces, or a force, that is not physical, that is outside of time, that creates the universe from absolute nothing. That is the scientific understanding of how you got here. A force, not physical, outside of time, creates the universe from absolute nothing. That should sound fairly familiar, doesn't it? What does it sound like? It is the biblical definition of God. And I will tell you, atheists, the names that you know, when I ask them, they say, you want to call it God, call it God. In other words, they're willing, because they say, this is the science, this is not Schroeder, this is not, some Bible thumping, whatever it is. This is straight science. The scientific community has, in fact, discovered God. But they will tell me, but that God would not be a God that then would be interested in the universe. It would be a Spinoza-type God. But you have to see the cup now as half full. Before the cup was empty altogether. We given talk in Florida about almost a year ago, and the person said, oh, but this is terrible, but it's not an active God. Good grief, that the scientific community is willing to say, to demonstrate that a God-like force created the universe is overwhelming. The only part that's remaining is that's the first half of the cup. The second half of the cup is that God active in the universe? And that's if you really have to, in that 5-minute DVD, YouTube rather, that's where we ended at that point. They put in a statement, the fact that you're around listening to this may prove that there is that God active in the universe. So we have a God, we have a description by the scientific community of a spot-on match the biblical description of God. So the only question that remains then, is that God active in the universe? They can say it's a huge question. It is a huge question. But you're way past the starting point now. So if you look around, there are many, many, many arguments one way or the other. The person that coined the term, the Big Bang, Fred Hoyle, until about 50 years ago, the overwhelming scientific opinion of the universe was it was eternal. There was no creation. Most people are not aware of that. But you can go back on the web and just look up surveys from 40 and 50, even almost 50 years ago, approximately 40 to 50 years ago. And you will discover that the split that I'm aware of is a 2/3 to 1/3. 2/3 of the scientists say at the beginning to the universe, you got to be kidding, the universe is eternal. A third, a small fraction, and way under half, said there was a beginning. Fred Hoyle was of the group that felt the universe was eternal. He was being interviewed, this is about 1950, 1951, it's just about that time. He's being interviewed on the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, the radio. And the interviewer, knowing Fred Hoyle's position that the universe was eternal, which of course you realize means the Bible is wrong from the first sentence. There's no beginning, no creation. The interviewer, to give like a little excitement to the talk, he said, well, Professor Hoyle, what do you say about these scientists, that say there was a beginning? And his reply was, oh yeah, they thought there was some kind of a Big Bang. And the press picked it up. The term the Big Bang was coined in derision. The press picked it up, and now it's called the Big Bang by everyone. It's a very, very useful term because it allows a secular person to say creation without, God forbid, having to say creation, because if you're secular, the last thing you want to have is a God, indication of a creator, because creation sounds like a creator, but the Big Bang is just a Big Bang. The term the Big Bang does not say what made the Big Bang go bang. Realize that. The term the Big Bang is only a secular way of saying creation. Okay, and it's very useful to have. So now we've got everyone holding by the fact that there was a creation. It's called the Big Bang. Creation by a force that's not physical, that's outside of time, etc., predates the universe. So how do we move forward from there? Now, Hoyle would be one of the examples of showing God active in this world. Fred Hoyle becomes Sir Fred Hoyle. Surprisingly, he gets the Nobel Prize because he developed, but it's theory, Nobel Prize usually goes to science, to actual things. he developed a theory of how the elements were formed in the universe. The Big Bang didn't produce chocolate and chopped liver. The Big Bang produced energy. That's all it produced. Super powerful energy. And in the expansion of this energy, Einstein had demonstrated that energy and matter are the same thing. Matter is merely condensed energy. The E equals mc squared does not say, it doesn't say that the energy disappears and becomes matter. That's exactly what it doesn't say. It says that energy can change form and take on the form of matter, but it remains energy. Just like, the common example that I use always is water. Water is made of hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. When you are drinking water, you are literally drinking hydrogen and oxygen. It doesn't look like hydrogen and oxygen. Most people drinking water can't say, oh, well, I think you can't be hydrogen and oxygen, blah, 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 blah. Give me a glass of water. But the fact is, when you drink water, you are literally drinking hydrogen and oxygen in a special form. And in exact parallel to this, when you look in the mirror in the morning, as depressing for some of us as that might be, when you look in the mirror in the morning, you are literally, not figuratively, literally looking at the light of creation in a form called you. And so is the chair you're sitting in, and so is the clothes in your body. Everything was made from that creation. Science holds explicitly that there was one physical creation. Of course, 1,000 years ago, Nachmanides, the Ramban, says that also. 3 times over in his opening commentary, Nachmanides, the Ramban, 3 times over it says there is one physical creation, one creation of stuff. He repeats it like once to get the point across. Science has come to agree with that. There's one physical creation. The other creation is spiritual. When it says in verse 21 of Genesis 1 that God creates the animals, it has nothing to do with their bodies, it's a spirit, it's the nefesh. The soul of animal life, when it's in text in verse 27, it says God creates the Adam, et Adam. Thank you, Peggy Kessler, who I pointed it out. God creates the Adam. But in verse 26 of Genesis 1, I'm already told that God makes Adam. So what's the creation? The creation is the soul, the neshama of Adam. So it's not a physical change, it's a spiritual change. In any event, so there's one physical creation of the universe, and then the universe goes forward and somehow makes all the elements. And what made Fred Hoyle become not just Sir Fred Hoyle, but a believer, there's no easy, when you build up the elements, you start with hydrogen, which is 1 proton, and then the next would be helium, which is 2 protons and 2 neutrons, and then you get to lithium, beryllium, boron, going up the periodic table. The difficulty is there's no way of making carbon. There's no stable, simple adding another proton to get from hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, or carbon, lithium, boron, boron to hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, boron. I'm not sure I'm getting it doesn't work. Hoyle predicted that the only way that this could possibly work is that there's a resonant energy in the helium, which is number 2, and we've already, carbon is number 6. And see, there's a bottleneck here, and if you can't get beyond carbon, none of the other elements form. And you can't make carbon in a simple way because there's no stable element that you can add another new proton. But adding a proton, hydrogen is 1 proton, helium is 2 protons, lithium is 3 protons. In other words, each proton, each number isn't the number of protons. There are neutrons in there also. Hoyle predicted that there must be a resonance, an energy that is just perfect in the combination of helium joining together, that after 2 heliums join together, now you've got number 4, 2 and 2, 4, the third helium, in a billionth of a second, actually it's less, the third helium has to fit into that keyhole, that resonance, and now you've got 6, carbon. It's the only way they can get beyond it. And we know that there are other elements, so that he predicted this resonance. It was discovered, and he wrote, it's amazing that it was published, he wrote in the Science Journal of the California Institute of Technology, right back in MIT, that's the East Coast, the West Coast is Caltech. He wrote in the Caltech Science Journal that it's clear there are no blind forces in nature. He said there's no blind forces in chemistry, in biology, and physics. The likelihood of getting carbon to form like this is so small that it goes beyond the possibility of randomness. So a person that coined the Big Bang in derision saw a fact that it's worth looking up. It's easy to find these types of things on the web. Mr. Fred Oil, Caltech. And what's crucial, he published in one of the major science institutes in the world. So if we're looking for him, that was the indication that God was at the stage, the second half of the cup. But that's in the nuclear physics. We can go further and find aspects of life, from the chemistry of life, the amazing biology, the DNA, nature. All life has the same information for storing information. All have the same system of storing information. The DNA, it's the same across all forms of life. It just has different words printed on it. Complexity is overwhelming. You say complexity trivializes it. There's no point in talking about it, because unless you study molecular biology, you haven't got a clue what it takes just to move your finger. Disney wouldn't make a movie about it. It's so ridiculous and beyond possibility. But that's what it takes. Billions of reactions. In fact, another person who's taught in biology would be George Wald. George Wald publishes in the Journal of Scientific American. It's not a peer-reviewed journal, but it's the most widely read science journal, probably by a factor of 10, maybe 100 over any other journal, Scientific American. And he published in the in the 50s, approximately 50s, 60s, that all you need is chance for life to start. Wald becomes a Nobel laureate for discovering what we just take for granted, that I can look at you and you shouldn't be offended, but as soon as I turn my head, I don't see you anymore, I see you, and as I go back, I see you. Wald discovered how it is possible that I can ride a bicycle. In other words, that the picture in my brain changes so rapidly, or a runner can run. In other words, in fractions of a second, about like a 15th of a second, you get a new picture on your head. In your head. So we have no idea what it is. The chemistry is known. And Wald worked out that chemistry, and it was so complex that this person that had said that life started by random reactions, first of all, Scientific American retracted the article 25 years later, which is surprising, because he's a Nobel laureate now. I mean, they retracted the article and said there's no, Scientific American, this materialist journal, said life could not have started by random reactions. They give some numbers. Harold Morowitz, in his book Energy Flow Biology, makes a calculation. It would take far more time than the billions of years that are available. It doesn't work. And by the way, when I say billions of years, in the Science About my second book, or you go to my website, geraldschroeder.com, I discuss exactly how the universe is from the creation to Adam. Just want to get this out of the way. 6 24-hour days. Anyone who says the days were not 24 hours each misunderstands this. All ancient commentary, with zero exception, says that Genesis days were 24 hours each. Science says 14 billion years, and the key is they have two different views of time. That's why time is described differently from the creation of the universe to Adam. This famous mistranslation is evening and morning, day one, evening and morning. In English, unfortunately, afford translation, but let that go forward. And then from Adam forward, it's totally human-based time. Adam and Eve live 130 years with from Adam forward, it's human time, earth time. Up to Adam, it's a different perspective. In fact, as Nachmanides points out, looking from time from the beginning, looking forward. And I don't want to get into that. You can just find it on my web. The Science of God has it in 2 chapters. The web has it in, I think, 5 pages. You read it by the hand, but it's a very simple approach. In any event, so we have these 6 24-hour days, and the 14 billion years, they happen in the same time. Wald initially said, well, there are billions of years from the creation till you get to life, so it happened by chance. And then, as I said, it was retracted by Scientific Americans. The retraction was unequivocal. This is one of the few times in his professional life when Professor Wald has been wrong. There's no equivocation. Could we really form a biological cell by waiting for random combinations? Harold Morowitz, in his book Energy and Flow Biology, proved that it take more time than the universe has existed if chance random combinations of the ion driving force. You will find in no peer-reviewed journal today statements of the origin of life that is random. There will always be a caveat. They don't say God. but there will always be something present that will nudge the molecules into being. Well, okay, those are all things that there are arguments about. You can see, so we see it in the physics of the formation of the elements, a tweaking of the system. I'm trying to get to the second cup. But we also see it even today in systems in the world around us. Ben Gurion, just before we formed the state, the friendly nations said, "Don't form it; it'll be a miracle." It's a great quote, and Ben Gurion said, "That's good news. The Jews are people of miracles." So he denounced the state, and thank God, against any logic whatsoever. You know, it's difficult. We see, I spoke with secular people, they say, "No, it wasn't a miracle, we just shot better than that." I mean, you know, but you have to realize some nuances in the world. At the end of, as the Germans were losing the war, where did they move all the equipment? They know it's going to be lost. The Russians were taking it. Where did the Russians have it sent? Did anyone ever watch Schindler's List? To Czechoslovakia. I mean, that's like a gift from heaven. Who could believe that they moved the equipment to Czechoslovakia? The Russians thought that Israel would become a socialist or communist state, so they allowed, then it wasn't the bad Russians arming us, they had to be careful, it was the Arabs. It was those nasty Czechs. And we fought the war. In fact it was, I think, Netanyahu mentioned it in his talk in Congress, I believe, if I remember correctly, that he said the rifle he was given in such and such a year was a Czech rifle. Thank God. Now, the likelihood of that taking place, but you never see it as a miracle unless you want to see it as a miracle, because it'd be just a chance. And here is a classic example of not seeing a miracle as a miracle. Wait, I have to check my time here. This is in the journal Nature. It's about the first Gulf War. Why were Scud casualties so low? They don't even have to say it's Israel. I mean, for some cockamamie reason, the Iraqis decided to bomb us. Unfortunately, like I said, don't open your mouth to Satan, or look at the famous Satan. The head of the military operation in this is Desert Storm, that first war, said the likelihood, and now the Scud missiles are landing in Israel. He said the likelihood of a person getting killed by a Scud missile in Israel is about, these quotes are amazing. I mean, they may not be interesting to me, at least I thought I was reporting it. It's about as likely as a person getting killed by lightning in Georgia. Within I think it was within a week, but I'll give it more space. Within the 3 weeks, a Scud missile landed on the American barracks and killed how many, 26 or 30 American soldiers. Really? Like a lightning bolt in Georgia? That had retracted a statement. In all the missiles that landed, and they landed here, there's only one direct casualty. Only one. There were other deaths that occurred with people. The masses aren't important. There's one casualty by direct hit. And that was so extraordinary that the journal Nature, and you fight to get an article into the journal Nature. It's not like, it's not like it's, just another newspaper. It is one of the 2 leading peer-reviewed journals in the world. You can take this right off the web also. Why were Scud casualties so low? As I say, notice they didn't have to say Israel. They weren't so low in the barracks. The American barracks, those guys are dead. So why were they so low? And they go and do a statistical study of how many, God forbid, people should have been killed. Because the kill rate of the Scud missiles was known. Because the Iraqis and the Iranians in the war of the cities had used the same missiles to try to kill each other off. And you realize that Iran has not been a friend of Iraq for a long time. It's the Persians. People, I'm sure you don't realize that they're not Arabs, they're Persians. They're Muslims, but they're Persians. So why were they so low? Well, as I read through this, it's just that they give an example. A Scud missile landed right smack dab in the middle of this densely populated area, and there was a quad, 4 buildings all around. It landed in the only open field in the area. It explodes in the field, the buildings are damaged, no casualties. Casualties to the buildings, but none. And they list about 3 other times where a whole building collapsed. 3 of the 4 walls of the bomb shelter in the building collapses directly on the building, no casualties. So what was the conclusion in about 3 or 4 places? Well, it says right here. Evidence also suggests that luck helped, it's always yours, helped to reduce the casualties. That luck helped to reduce they mention luck consistently through the article. I've never, in all my studies in scientific journals, I have never seen the results of any statistical study attributed to luck. But in the materialist world, there is no other explanation other than luck, if you're stuck with the material world. So the question then comes down and there are other examples in trying to show that God is in fact active in the world around us. It's the second half of the cup. This is the example, the forming of the statement. Example, there's another example that escapes my mind at the moment. Oh yeah, out of MIT, it's embarrassing, my alma mater. The analysis of the casualties in the most recent, something edge, I don't recall the name in the Hebrew or in English, the something edge that we did in Gaza. And now the missiles are being sent not in 1,000 kilometers, but tens and fifties of kilometers. So the aiming was much better. And out of MIT comes a article published in Technology Review, which is the science journal of MIT, and it says explicitly the reason that there were such low casualties in this most recent war was luck. Of course, they didn't want to say it was the Iron Dome because the person had like something in his bonnet against it, I don't know what. But he said it was luck. I mean, luck is just another way of saying we don't know what is going on. Is there a non-material aspect to this very physical world that we see around us? That is there any indication that there's a non-physical aspect to the world? So I see that in some of the work I'm doing now in the idea of free will. The lust to life, every person has this passion for life, and the passion to be your master of your thoughts are probably 2 major drives in a human being. Viktor Frankl talks about that when he's being tortured by the Nazis, and how at least he said he felt at one point he was more free than they were, because he had finally controlled his mind, although he was doing horrible things to his body. So the 2 passions we have for life and also for free will. And the irony is we have a passion for life, but death catches up with life eventually. And every neurologist with whom I've spoken says there's no place for free will in the world as we know it. And in fact, in the materialist world, there's no place for free will. The Bible says we have free will. I placed it in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, obviously. That's the vested interest. But from the science point of view, how does it work? Now, the fact that we feel that we have free will, that we perceive we have free will, is really not a good argument, because perceptions can be extremely untrue. For instance, I would ask everyone to please wiggle your toes. I can see your toes are moving. Wiggle your toes. I'll ask you, where do you feel your toes? Where do you feel your toes? What's the joke? Where do you feel your toes?
Where they are.
Where I see them.
In your shoes, right?
Yes.
That's our perception. Toes feel nothing. That's why painkillers work. The nerves pick up this signal and send it to your brain. Your entire life is between here and here. The nerves pick up the signal of the moving toes, send it up to one of the 6 body maps that you have in your brain, and the part of that body map that is related to your toes is so powerful on your consciousness that it makes you feel your toes are in your shoes, which is they are. But your toes feel absolutely nothing. It's all in your brain. It's hard to understand that, but that's a reality. So perceptions are not really a great indication. The floor feels very solid, but in reality, the solidity of this stone on an atomic level is less than 0.00000000000000001% solidity. So why doesn't one donut fall through the floor? Because there are forces that make it feel. We perceive it solid, but it's not solid. And you don't need the frozen shoes. Everything in your world takes place between here and here. And I think I'm running out of time, but there is an aspect. What's interesting is that it seems that the same neurologists that tell us that we don't have free will have discovered, in fact, the source of our free will and the source of our life beyond life. Not life, but life after life is a misnomer. It's not like life, then death, and then life. It's the same life that goes through its life beyond life. So what is this? The way that we do science, first of all, the chemistry is known very well in the brain. It's the replay that's the problem. There's no picture of you in your brain, there's chemistry. So where's the replay? Well, let's put it this way. The way we do science is we do most science that's not a breakthrough, like relativity, which is deduction, is done by induction. You repeat an experiment over and over with different things, different aspects, and you discover similarity and you discover some law. I drop a stone, it falls down. I drop a feather, it falls down. I pour water, it falls down. Gee, matter attracts matter. It must be gravity. That's how it's done. So if we look at how the brain works, every place that I touch the brain, I take an example. If I am able to stimulate this part of my brain, the visual cortex is where vision is stored or experienced, then I experience light even if it's a pitch black room, okay? Because those nerves are there. You know this, you know that example from own experiences. When I was raised kids, in the middle of the night, the kid starts to cry. So you jump out of bed, you run, if they get to the room, if they get you, shut the door, bang, you hit your head on the door, and you see stars. Because that bang stimulated the nerves in your retina, and they're good soldiers. They say, when I'm stimulated, that means light, and they send the information back in. You perceive light somewhere. We know the chemistry, we don't know what it's perceived. So you can touch that part of your brain, and you get the sensation of light. And we know there's radiations out here. Unfortunately, we call them light waves. They're not light waves. They're radiations of a certain length. That when they hit our eyes, they stimulate the retina, and you see light. But these radiations that we call light waves are not light. If they were light, then this air would be glowing. You see, it's not glowing. The same is with sound. We can stimulate parts of sound over here on the side of the brain, which is where the sound is recorded, harmony or digital, it depends which part of the brain. And you get the sensation of sound even though it's silent. On the other hand, you can clap your hands, molecules start moving, boom, 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 they hit your eardrums, they signal, and they give you the sensation of sound. You can cut open a nice fresh garlic pod, what do you call it? Great smell. And we know those molecules exist outside, but we know also there's a system in here that picks up those molecules and lets you perceive those molecules as a certain smell. So what we've discovered is every place in the brain. There's a book that's going to come out about this. It's going to come out in Portuguese, but maybe it'll come out in English also because I'm working with these Portuguese that weren't from. Every place that you stimulate in the brain and you get a sensation, there is a parallel reality out here. The brain is out there to keep you alive. It measures the world around you. Stimulate here, light, but there's light waves out here. Stimulate here, sound, but there's sound waves out here. Stimulate here, there's garlic knobs. Every place in your brain that you stimulate, it relates to a phenomena that exists outside your body and is measurable. We can make a machine that measures light waves. Photoelectric machine. And we can make a machine that picks up sound waves, a microphone or something, a recorder. And then the scientists who say there's no free will realize I'm only using persons that this would be Rebecca Sachs at MIT and Oliver Blank in Scandinavia and Oliver Sacks, not the Sachs of the chief rabbi, but the very famous neurologist, all say there's no free will, but they've all discovered, they all been published on it, a part of the brain that when you stimulate it, you experience you outside of you. Now, if I'm going to be consistent in my scientific understanding of how I do inductive research, I touch here, sensation, and the phenomena exists out here. I touch here, sensation, and the phenomena exists out here. Every place in the brain that I can stimulate relates to a phenomena that really exists outside my body. And then suddenly I touch a part of the brain that gives what the skeptics say. They say the shadow person. They call it the shadow person. You get an understanding that there's a part of you that is not physically you. There is no reason. Now, they push it aside by saying it's hallucination. The likelihood of we're talking about healthy brains here. The likelihood of a healthy brain having hallucinations is about zero. Over the eons and eons of time that we in the jungle developed, brains that hallucinated were weeded out. You wake up in the middle, you have a hallucinating brain, a healthy brain, a hallucinating brain. Oh, there's a middle of the night. I hear, yeah, there is a leopard up there. There's a leopard in that tree. I see it. Oh, it's a shadow. Go back to sleep. The next night, you hear, I see it. There's the leopard up there. 5 nights in a row, you see this leopard up in the tree. You hallucinate. There's a leopard up in the tree, and it's not there. But the 6th night, you finally learned, don't pay attention to it. It's just a hallucination. And what happens on the 7th night?
Another time.
Yeah. You're not up for breakfast the next morning. Hallucinating brains were weeded out in the development of our brain over the eons and eons of tens and tens and tens of thousands of years. The likelihood of that shadow person being a hallucination is about zero. But what are you going to say if it's not that? You have to, because in a materialist world, it has to be hallucination. But that's completely contrary to all the ways that we do science. What science is, you repeat and repeat and repeat to find that your brain is totally responsive to a reality that's outside the world. And then suddenly you find something that's embarrassing. Now we can't measure the shadow person. We can't make a machine that picks up a shadow person. It just doesn't work. Because the only antenna that can pick it up is our brain. And Wald, the person who then becomes who starts off by saying that it's all by chance and then gets the Nobel Prize and then discovers how the eye works, and he says there's no blind force. He says essentially what Fred Hoyle said, but one more statement, that the entire universe is the expression of a mind. Heisenberg says it. The Nobel Prize, there's 5 Nobel Prize winners in physics. They all say the same thing. The universe is not physical. It's an expression of the mind. We see that. I apologize for saying, but about 5 months ago, I was at CERN. CERN is where they have the big thing with the Higgs boson was developed. And there were 50 of us that were invited from around the country, scientists. Some were theologians, some were scientists, some were scientists and theologians. There were 50 of us that came together. It was a closed conference on the interplay of the metaphysical world with the physical world. They called it faith and science. Now it's interesting, CERN is so high up in the scientific category of the world that they don't have to be embarrassed by this. If you're a little hunky-tonky place and you start talking about faith and science, they don't pay attention. But when CERN, which is clearly the world's leading research organization at the moment in the world, it's kind of interesting. And it's interesting that the Higgs particle, I have to get this other name, I apologize. The Higgs particle, the 2 Nobel laureates got for that. One was Peter Higgs, and the other was a French Jew, and I don't know his name. He was hidden during the Holocaust by a priest from the Nazis. And so it's interesting, this interplay between the priest saving him. Higgs is getting bombed right and left in the United Kingdom. This guy, the China king, and they kill him. And what happens when the two of them together? They discover the Higgs particle, which is not the God particle. It's called the God particle. I'm going to spell the word without an N at the end. The original term was what? The goddamn particle. Spaniard coined it that, and the publisher said you'll sell a lot more books if you call it the God particle than the goddamn particle. So they changed it. So, but what I'm getting at is that that the other half of the cup is being filled also. Luck, time and again, putting together the world. There's so many things. This idea of a person, a part of us outside of us. So I think, in fact, there are good arguments from the secular community that the other half of the cup is not full also. So we have about 3 minutes of
Right. We want to thank Professor Schroeder for his talk in our lecture series, and in a moment he will take questions and comments.
for about 3 minutes. I apologize. If there are any questions. Yep.
Yes.
Our
Cameraman, Dr. Glassman is asking if it's easier for if you would come up to the lectern so we can get your questions and comments on when he's filming, if you don't mind, unless you prefer not to be on camera. It'd be easier to hear you that way.
Maybe it's difficult to, maybe just aim it over. No,
It's easier for if you come up here next to Professor Schroeder.
Okay.
I think you're longer to get here than the question.
Go ahead.
It's not really a question. Can you explain what this actually is? You showed it a lot.
Oh.
Why did
It's-
NASA produce this for? What did they show it?
They wanted to show the development of the universe in one diagram. We have the creation and the expansion of the universe over time, and that out of this burst of energy comes things called people that can make a satellite that measures the history of the universe. That's a phenomenal thing. You know, the scientific community has said that super powerful light beams can become alive, conscious, feel love and joy. I mean, where does a light beam have a chutzpah to feel love? But that's what this diagram says, because everything here and everything here and everything here comes from that Big Bang, from the creation. So the diagram just shows the development in very schematic form over time. And what's interesting is, at least in part, is you notice that the rate of expansion is now increasing. That there's a new force that we have no idea what it is that's making the expansion create. But that's essentially what the diagram says, the development of the universe over time. And each year is linked to 50 years, and we have the creation, and then this us. Okay? That's it? Okay, perfect timing.
Thank you very much.